Deep within the American wilderness, carved into solid granite and hidden behind multi-ton blast doors, lies a secret world. This isn't science fiction, it's the reality of the continuity of government program. Born from the existential dread of the Cold War, facilities like Cheyenne Mountain, Raven Rock, and Mount Weather were designed to ensure that even if the world burned in nuclear fire, the United States government would endure. Cheyenne Mountain is perhaps the most famous. Completed in 1966, this underground city features freestanding steel buildings mounted on massive springs to survive the shock of a direct hit. But these bunkers aren't just relics of the past. On September 11, 2001, these silent sentinels were activated, proving their critical role in modern national security. Welcome to Forbidden Files. Beneath the mountains of Colorado, Pennsylvania, and Virginia, the United States government has built cities. Not metaphorical cities, real ones, with streets, power plants, water supplies, hospitals, dining halls, fuel reserves, communication centers capable of running the entire country. Hidden inside solid rock, designed to survive a direct nuclear strike, and almost nobody who lives above them has ever seen inside. There are 3 facilities at the heart of America's continuity of government plan. Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado, the most famous. Raven Rock in Pennsylvania, the most secretive. Mount Weather in Virginia, the most mysterious. Together, they form a network designed to answer one question. If Washington, D.C. is destroyed, who runs America? And from where? To understand why these places were built, you need to go back to August 29, 1949. The Soviet Union detonated its first nuclear bomb. The United States had assumed it would have years, perhaps a decade, before the Soviets achieved nuclear capability. They had 4. Everything changed overnight. Washington, D.C., the center of American government, was now a target. A single Soviet bomb could destroy the Pentagon, the White House, Congress, and the entire command structure of the United States military in minutes. Someone had to think about what happens next. The answer was a program called Continuity of Government. The idea was simple. If the worst happened, if Washington was destroyed, there needed to be somewhere else for the government to go. Somewhere hardened against nuclear blast. Somewhere with communications, with power, with enough supplies to keep the country running through a nuclear war and whatever came after. And that somewhere needed to be built in secret, because a known location would become a target. Cheyenne Mountain sits approximately 10 miles south of Colorado Springs, Colorado. From the outside, it looks like a mountain, because it is a mountain. A 9,565-foot granite peak rising from the Colorado Plains. And inside it, blasted out of solid rock beginning in 1961, is one of the most extraordinary military installations ever built. Construction required the removal of 693,000 tons of granite, not moving it, blasting it out of the mountain with explosives. The project took 5 years and cost $142 million, over $1 billion in today's money. President John F. Kennedy visited in 1963 to inspect progress. The complex became fully operational on February 6, 1967. They dissected it. The entrance is a tunnel, 2/3 of a mile long, bored straight into the heart of the mountain. At the end of the tunnel are blast doors. Not regular doors. Steel doors weighing 25 tons each. Designed to seal shut in the event of a nuclear detonation nearby and withstand the pressure wave of a multi-megaton explosion. They can be closed in seconds. Beyond the blast doors, the complex spreads across 5.1 acres of excavated rock. 15 freestanding steel buildings, none of them touching the rock walls or ceiling. Each one mounted on enormous steel springs, 1,319 of them, each weighing 1,000 pounds. The springs absorb the shockwave of a nearby nuclear detonation. The buildings shake, but the equipment and the people inside survive. Cheyenne Mountain is a self-contained world, its own diesel power plant, capable of providing all the electricity the complex needs independently of the national grid. Underground reservoirs holding 1.5 million gallons of water, enough for extended operations without any external supply. 6 100,000-gallon fuel tanks. Its own sewage treatment system. And an air filtration system capable of detecting chemical, biological, and nuclear contamination and sealing the complex within seconds. For most of the Cold War, Cheyenne Mountain was the nerve center of NORAD, the North American Aerospace Defense Command. The facility tracked every aircraft, every missile, every satellite in the skies above North America around the clock. If the Soviet Union launched its missiles, the warning would come from here. The decision about how to respond would be made from here, or from one of the other bunkers in the network. On September 11, 2001, Cheyenne Mountain went to its highest alert status for the first time since the Cold War. As the attacks unfolded, the bunker activated. Staff scrambled to their positions. The blast doors, which had never been closed in anger, were prepared for closure. The general commanding NORAD was driving to the mountain when the attacks began, and temporarily lost contact with the White House. For a few hours on September 11, the command structure that Cheyenne Mountain was built to protect faced exactly the kind of crisis its designers had imagined. Medium pause. But Cheyenne Mountain is not the most secretive facility in the network. That distinction belongs to a place 70 miles north of Washington, D.C., in the mountains of south-central Pennsylvania. That distinction belongs to Raven Rock Mountain Complex, officially known as Site R, is sometimes called the Underground Pentagon, because that is essentially what it is. If the real Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia were destroyed in a nuclear attack, the Department of Defense would reconstitute itself inside Raven Rock. Construction began in 1951, 2 years after the Soviet nuclear test, and the first phase was completed in 1953. The government seized 280 acres of Pennsylvania farmland for the project. Workers blasted into the side of a greenstone mountain, a rock even harder than granite, and carved out space for 3 underground buildings. The initial cost was $35 million, the equivalent of $350 million today. The complex continued expanding for decades. Today, Raven Rock covers 650 acres. It is a fully functioning military installation, with personnel who commute to work there every day from the surrounding communities. Locals in the area know it exists. They see the military vehicles on the roads. They know their neighbors work there. They do not know what is inside. Almost nobody does. Medium pause. What has been documented through declassified materials and journalist investigations, the facility can house approximately 5,000 people. Not in comfortable quarters. Communal bathrooms, shared showers, bunk beds rather than private rooms. The conditions of a well-equipped emergency shelter, not a luxury retreat. But with communication systems capable of reaching every U.S. military command on Earth, a full command center for directing military operations, and everything needed to run the country in the absence of a functioning Washington. The third major facility is Mount Weather, officially the Mount Weather Emergency Operations Center, located in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Northern Virginia, about 48 miles west of Washington, D.C. Medium pause. Mount Weather is different from Cheyenne Mountain and Raven Rock in one important way. It is not primarily a military facility. It is operated by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. Its role is not just military continuity, it is the continuity of civilian government. Congress, the Supreme Court, the Cabinet. If Washington were destroyed, the people who would reconstitute the civilian government of the United States would come here. If Washington were destroyed, the people who would reconstitute the civilian government of the United States would come here. On September 11, 2001, Mount Weather was activated. Senior government officials, members of Congress, cabinet secretaries were evacuated to the facility as the attacks unfolded. For several hours, some of the highest-ranking civilian officials in the United States government were inside a mountain in Virginia, watching the attacks on television, uncertain whether more strikes were coming. The facility worked exactly as designed. But the most extraordinary facility in America's continuity network is one that has already been decommissioned and whose story only became public by accident. The Greenbrier is a famous luxury resort in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia, one of the most celebrated hotels in America, hosting presidents since the 19th century. For 30 years, hidden beneath its West Virginia wing was a fully equipped congressional bunker designed to house all 535 members of Congress in the event of nuclear war. In 1992, Washington Post journalist Ted Gupp published a story revealing the bunker's existence. The government immediately decommissioned it. A secret kept for 30 years, ended by a newspaper article. Today, the Greenbrier Bunker is a tourist attraction. Visitors can walk through the dormitories where senators were meant to sleep, 18 people to a room. They can see the replica Senate chamber and House chamber, where Congress was supposed to convene underground while nuclear war raged above. The decontamination showers, the medical facilities, the cafeteria. A complete underground replica of the government, hidden under a golf resort for 30 years. These facilities are not Cold War relics. They are actively maintained and upgraded. In 2015, the Pentagon announced it was spending $700 million to move critical computer systems back into Cheyenne Mountain, specifically because the mountain's granite walls provide protection against electromagnetic pulse attacks. A nuclear weapon detonated high in the atmosphere generates an EMP that can destroy electronics across a continent. Inside Cheyenne Mountain, shielded by hundreds of feet of solid rock, the electronics survive. Medium pulse. The threats these bunkers were designed to survive have evolved. Nuclear missiles are faster and more accurate than in the 1960s. Hypersonic weapons can reach targets in minutes rather than the 30 minutes that Cold War planners assumed. Cyber attacks can disable command infrastructure before any physical weapon arrives. The bunkers have had to evolve with the threats, and the investment to keep them current is ongoing and classified. And here is the question that these facilities always raise: who gets in? The facilities are not large enough for everyone. Raven Rock houses 5,000. Mount Weather has capacity for senior government officials, not their families. Cheyenne Mountain prioritizes military command personnel. In the event of a nuclear war, the people selected to survive in these facilities would be chosen by protocol, by rank, by function. Not by ballot, not by luck. The continuation of American democracy, in the event of its near destruction, would be managed by a list that most Americans have never seen and had no voice in creating. From the outside, these mountains look like mountains. Cheyenne Mountain rises from the Colorado Plains, as it has for millions of years. Raven Rock sits in the Pennsylvania hills, covered in trees. Mount Weather disappears into the Virginia Blue Ridge, marked only by a small, easy-to-miss sign. The people who drive past them every day have no idea what is inside, which is exactly how their designers intended it. The United States government has spent billions of dollars building cities inside mountains so that if the worst happens, something survives. Whether that something is America or just the idea of America depends on who you ask. If this made you think about what is hiding beneath the mountains you drive past, drop it in the comments. And if you want more stories about what governments build when they think nobody is watching, subscribe. The next file is already opened.